that as many people on the team can join it as possible. So I'm going to work today to try to finish up, if possible, the sort of review of best practices that we have been going through. But I do want to begin the class by making a few remarks. And evidently we're having some analog issues again. Okay. First of all, this afternoon there's a scheduled tutorial. Some of you may have noticed or may remember on Tuesdays we have tutorials for this class. And you may further recall that within the syllabus for each of the tutorials during the semester, I lay out expectations, okay, as to what I'd like to see there. Today's tutorial is marked for a first inspection, a first formal peer review. Now, some of you may have documents to support that inspection. So one of the reasons we get going on these inspections so early in the term is because students very frequently relate to me that if they didn't start it till later, they regretted that. Another reason has to do with one of the key advantages of peer review in general and formal inspections in particular when compared with testing, namely the fact that with peer review and formal inspection, we can conduct it on artifacts that are not running code. What sort of artifacts might we inspect other than code that's fully formed, defined, and ready for deployment or already deployed? What other things might we look at?
Risk analysis.
Good. Yeah, so first cut at risk analysis. How about another document that's often available rather early? Yeah.
The meeting minutes.
Good. Okay, meeting minutes would be good. Yeah, so you can identify needs for not only gaps in those particular minutes, but needs for future minute taking that might improve the quality of minutes from then on. So that's good. How about other things that could be inspected early? Yeah.
Some documents outlining the strategy for things like the technologies you can use. And
good.
How you do this.
That's right. Because a week from today will be the first of the presentations you make as part of the course, 1 of 5, where you'll be laying out your plans infrastructurally for your projects. These projects are not trivial projects. They involve often quite a few moving pieces. Maybe it's server-side issues and issues that have to be played out on an app platform, or it's multiple technologies interacting, so JavaScript and Google Real-Time API and Oculus and et cetera. And you want to have some plan about how all this will fit together in terms of concrete resources, your repo, your issue tracking system, your database and database server. If you're using containerization technologies, which technologies you're using, Docker or Rocket, for example. What are you using for your continuous integration pipeline, etc. These are all part of what I'd like to see you talk about next week. And the general plan for that is something you want to be able to go over and ask, okay, what are we missing? Is all this going to play together nicely? Are there some things, some money we're leaving on the table in the sense that easy wins we're not taking advantage of? Maybe you're standardizing around GitLab and you realize, oh wait, with GitLab we can automatically produce Docker images as part of the GitLab pipelines. So we'll weave that component into the GitLab side rather than doing it as a separate process. So in short, you should be able to review that. How about another document frequently available early particularly when you have more ready access to your stakeholder. Begins with an R.
Requirements.
Requirements. Yeah, user requirements. Now, as we'll talk about in a requirements lecture, requirements come in different flavors. There's user requirements, and then there's a set of non-functional requirements, which might be specified by the user, sometimes not. There's a set of derived requirements, which the user doesn't care about specifically as such. They didn't request them, but they were implied by the state of the technology and the constraints you're working with, etc. They're implied by user requirements ultimately. It's just, they're a reflection of the current state of affairs in the technology world and the constraints you have to live in, etc. So, if you want a system that that is accessing a database for updates in order to meet a user requirement, the need for connectivity on an ongoing basis might be there for the system. Or you might be talking about targeting a mobile platform which is known to have small amounts of memory associated with it. And that means that your program is not going to be able to do certain, it needs to be designed in a memory sensitive way, in a way that has low memory footprint. Or maybe you're working with a mobile platform where certain types of computation you want to do, deep learning, applying a deep learning system to recognize one thing from another, is not feasible to do on that platform. It's the computational cost is just too great. It'll make the phones heat up and become unpleasant. So it has to be done on the server. The user doesn't have a stake in this game. I mean, they don't care where it's done as long as it's done. But given the state of technologies, given the constraints we're operating in as software engineers that are based on hardware, existing software platforms, the state of the art, these things may be implied. So pulling together a document like that early is advised, not least because you can get it inspected by the user. You could pass it in front of the client, the customer, who often is the user here, and get feedback on it. What are we missing, etc. It can help the team head in the same direction with respect to their vision of the project and their sense of what's needed. So I have down for today as part of the tutorial, well, as the tutorial, that you take that time for a formal inspection. Now I'm going to be a bit accommodating on this. I actually ask in the syllabus that you let me know a day ahead where this will be, and I haven't seen an email come in yet, but where this will be. And I get the fact that teams are still coming together, and I was really happy to see the teams talking. If you're not going to use it for a formal inspection, then use it for another key priority in getting in place the documents that could be inspected. Maybe it's, well, any one of these. A risk document is certainly one of them. It should be fairly low-hanging fruit to put together, to do a brainstorm with the group and come up with a risk document. So I'd like you to work on that for this afternoon if you don't have in place inspection plans. But get these inspections going because they really help. They spread knowledge. They find oversights. They help ensure communication with the stakeholder often. Get them going soon. So that's sort of one remark. Another remark is that teams in this class often are composed of people with very different levels of experience in the technologies you're going to exploit. And it's quite typical for a given team that only a part of the team, sometimes it's a third, just 3 or 4 people, that actually really understand that technology well because they've used it in 350 or 355 or what have you. And the others need to come up to speed on it. They need to come up to speed soon. And I would be fooling you if I said, there's any opportunity within the group to not learn the technologies you're going to be applying. That, someone who's the project manager doesn't need to know anything about it, or someone who's a tester doesn't need to know anything about it, or someone who's a risk manager. The fact is that all of the positions are going to have to come up to speed to a significant degree in these technologies. Some it'd be a bit more of a gentle slope. But I will tell you this further, that it is extraordinarily important from the standpoint of team success, of realizing the potential of the team, that you not merely view this as a sink or swim thing where people have to learn these things or they're not going to be able to perform, and those who know it already push forward, and those that don't know it need to catch up on their own. You are squandering potential of your team if you treat it that way. What you need to do is consciously be asking, how can we disseminate this knowledge? Because the people in the team are interlinked, ladies and gentlemen. A mistake made by one person is going to ripple through to more work by another. The persons who know the most about the technologies may be overwhelmed if the understanding of those technologies is not spread widely around. Because all sorts of pressures and needs will be focused on the people who know the most what they're doing. So it's in your interest as a team, as individuals, to spread this knowledge around as soon as possible. So another component that I'd be very happy about to see this afternoon, I think will be laudable, is if someone wanted to give tutorials on some of the technologies you're talking about. But it shouldn't just be restricted, these first opening days. It may be that, deliverable 3, you're rolling out some technologies which rely heavily on Node.js, and there's one or two people on the team that know all about that, and they can go brief the others. Make sure that you try to get these sort of internal training opportunities up to speed, and make sure there's other investments you make in this sort of spreading knowledge around. For example, you may use pair programming. You may have buddy testing in effect, where you actually pair up developers. I unit test your code, you unit test mine, or testers and developers. So you have sort of a pairing of the two. You may have shadowing going on, where one person who's less familiar with the technology shadows another who's more familiar and comes up to speed. I will reward these sort of investments of you to spread knowledge around. But more to the point, it will be rewarded because you will go further as a team. It'll be more cohesive, and it'll be able to achieve more. Teams fail when there are single points of failure. People in industry talk about the bus number of a team. Anyone know what the bus number of a team is? What's a bus number? Yeah, Eric.
The number of people that have to get hit by a bus before the project is great.
That's right. That's right. It cannot continue. And there are teams out there in industry where there's a conscious effort to, this is quite common actually, to make the bus number as high as possible so that you will reduce the vulnerability. And of course, it's not just them being hit by a bus. What else could take someone out of service? Sickness, good example, yeah. What else could make someone non-available for a certain amount of time? Or on a permanent level?
Internet goes out.
Yeah, if they're working from home or something, that could be pretty damaging, right? Okay, good. Another thing?
They quit.
Yeah, they quit. So the time was, ladies and gentlemen, Silicon Valley, the average time people spent at a given company, or a given company, I think it was very, very low. It was measured, I think, if memory serves me, it was less than a year on average. Now, that was some time ago, and it may have increased some, but people are very mobile. And an industry like you folks are going into, where the real assets of value are high-quality developers, high-quality testers, etc., you write your ticket, you can move on quite readily, and people do move on. And they move on particularly quickly, often if it's a team that doesn't invest in the people, doesn't spread knowledge around, doesn't offer opportunities for training, etc. So increasing the bus number, lowering that vulnerability to people not being available is key. And there's many other examples. People take an extended period of time off. People unexpectedly have to care for a loved one and need to go on compassionate care leave or whatever it is. These are serious issues that come up, and it's in your interest to reduce your vulnerability and a lot of that is spreading knowledge. A lot of that is making sure that others in the team know what to do when this person's not available. Prime case of this a number of years back had to do with a coding cowboy problem we had in one of the teams, where there was one person who was lead developer who frankly hogged the position. They were very skilled as a developer, but they overestimated their abilities compared to others, and they just wouldn't let others effectively contribute. So they like to strut around and say, I wrote 90% of the code base, for this project, etc. And in that particular case, as I recall, the rest of the team accommodated this to their peril, actually. And at some point, the code cowboy involved got sick, and the team had real problems because they didn't know what this code did. They didn't know how to debug it. How do you test it if they don't know what it's supposed to be doing? As I recall, the code cowboy also went off to a programming contest, and we're part of a team out of the province for that. And the team also had great issues. They couldn't effectively deliver on the next sprint or what have you because this code cowboy was not available. And it ended up hurting them greatly in the end because they were so dependent on this person and the vagaries of this person, etc. So you want to avoid that. You want to spread knowledge around, and now's a good time to start this afternoon, okay? So if you don't have one of those inspections planned, think about briefing people on technology. If you don't have a presentation pulled, at least collect together some resources which would be good for people to check out. Take advantage of these times. It'll benefit you as an individual or benefit your project. It'll benefit the stakeholder relationship because they'll see you making progress. Okay, so those were some upfront words about this. I recognize this class is challenging. Students, like when you go to a job, you often are faced with the need to deliver well on coming up to speed with challenging work, with challenging understanding and technologies. And this course demands maturity for that, but it demands maturity in a context that can leverage training, etc. Yeah.
For the tutorial stuff,
Yeah.
do we have to be here, or is it okay if we book a room?
No, it's absolutely encouraged to book a room. And in fact, if you look at the syllabus, it even says, let me know for the inspections the location that you choose. So try to make sure you book that through the Sphinx booking system or what have you early, so I know where it is, so that I can drop by. and it's absolutely encouraged you meet at a place that you find convenient and critically conducive to conducting an effective meeting. And this room might not be the ideal venue for doing that. And so, yeah, Sphinx rooms are great. Whatever you find useful is just be able to specify to me where that is, so I'm the TAs can go pay visits. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah.
I imagine they don't need to be during the scheduled time during tutorials.
They should not be limited to that. Let's put it that
So
way.
we probably need ones outside of it as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah. If good question, and I'm sorry for not making that clear. Yeah. In order to address the requirements for this course, and let me trot out another. You should have read in the course syllabus. Each person in this course is responsible for submitting artifacts, so documents of some sort, materials of some sort, to be subject to a formal inspection at least once during the term. So you have teams, 12 or 13 people. Get going soon, because there's only 12 or 13 weeks in the term. So get going soon. Do them early, do them often. And bear in mind, you may ask, you think inspections, code review, almost the very name of it, suggests the need for code. No, this is about peer review, and inspections and peer review can be done on lots of other documents. For the testers, test cases you've created, test matrix you've created, another thing that I request. Code coverage strategies that help you try to test out the different components of the program. For the build master, aspects of the build configuration, how it responds to failed builds, whatever. For the risk officer, lists of risks. For the people involved as dev leads and so on, something about their assignment protocol or system, or aspects of the code base that they're looking over. Everyone should have some artifacts that can be inspected, and the sooner the better. Okay, I do ask you to let me know when inspections have taken place, and I will view it as forward progress. So, in short, there's high expectations about when these events take place from the standpoint of inspections. Peer reviews should be taking place all through the term, myriad places, and then some of the tutorials to spread knowledge around. Spread knowledge even on things like how you use Git effectively in a team context. So maybe one person on the team goes off and reads about branching policy for large Git projects that involve multiple platforms and brings that knowledge back to the team and gives a little tutorial to people. These are great things, and I think only a small fraction of them really can be in the tutorials, because the tutorials in this class are used not only for inspections and team meetings, but they're also used for class presentations, etc. So yeah, it has to be a lot of other times outside of that, and sometimes weekends or what have you. Yeah. You folks should think about tools for giving you flexibility here. Maybe you want to have tools for remote peer reviews. There's a tool called Garrett that's, for example, to allow people to do remote code reviews. And maybe you want to think about using that. There's other tools that you folks know as well as I do that will allow people to sort of join remotely and conduct a session. So think about leveraging those in creative ways. It doesn't always mean that people have to, navigate the vagaries of bus cancellations because of mechanical problems to get in here on a Sunday. Try to make sure you take advantage of the technologies, but document when you have these inspections, okay? Some basic comments. Any other questions? Okay. I'm hopeful the teams are off to a good start. I've taken a look at the team assignments and the people working on them, and the positions, the accountable positions, and so on. I'm hopeful. I'm happy to see the discussions going on here, but don't waste any time getting going, and work towards next week's deliverable for sure. Okay, make sure those different pieces that are required are in place. Have in mind what you're going to use for coverage testing. Have in mind what you're going to use for unit testing and system testing. What tools, if any, you'll use to facilitate code reviews. What's your CI system and continuous integration system? Are you going to do style checks? Are you going to use code style or some other tool? What are your primary programming languages for this, etc.? Just make sure you go through and have a clear idea. And the sooner you do that, the more team members who aren't familiar with these tools will be able to start reading up on them, and you'll be able to consciously think, okay, let's get in place those tutorials. Okay? Good. Okay. Those are some preliminary